Welcome to the latest series of the FODcast, where we bring you the latest insights into the future of digital commerce. In Season 6, we continue to interview some of the most respected professionals in the industry as we broaden the topics to cover what it takes to build a business within e-commerce, navigating through business change, as well as the future of technology within digital commerce. As we continue our journey to have one of the best podcasts within commerce, we ask you to like and share within your network if you enjoy our content. Hello, and welcome back to the FODcast, the future of all things digital commerce. This is my first recording of 2025. We've moved office and the podcast studio is unfortunately non-existent at the minute, which explains the different background for those watching on YouTube. However, the show must go on. Anyway, today I'm pleased to welcome David Williams, an experienced B2B and B2C digital director, as we focus on digital transformation, specifically within B2B. David is currently digital director for DCC Vital, a leading supplier of medical equipment and consumables. Welcome, David.
Hi, James. How are you?
Thanks for joining me, David. Let me hand it over to you for a slightly better introduction to yourself, as
There's
well as a
nothing
bit
wrong
more
with that,
about your
James. It was
role at
fine.
DCC.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as you said, I mean, I've just more of a background for me. I've nearly 20 years of B2C digital e-commerce experience for multiple brands, multiple verticals, worked in fashion, mainly during that time. And about 4 years ago, moved to DCC Vital, which is as you said, medical supplies distribution, medical devices business that's run out of Ireland and part of the DCC PLC group. And my role there has been kind of twofold, really. One is to drive the B2B e-commerce business and transform it and upgrade it from where it was at before, and then obviously look at other digital transformation opportunities within that company.
Nice. Thank you. And obviously, yeah, like you said before that, obviously extensive background across a variety of retailers and what have you. So yeah, I've been looking forward to having you on the show, David. See, our relationship goes back a little way. I guess we'll jump straight in. Why is the B2B market ripe for change?
I think, I've been in it for 4 years now, and I do say to people that it reminds me, well, there are two things. But first of all, it reminds me of where B2C was at probably 10 years ago internally, and where a business is at, and that there is that need and desire for digital change. But I think the other things that are happening are more macro. So the rise of digital natives and their expectations. Increasingly the personas we've looked at are always looking to do their business online more and more. Doesn't mean that it's purely online, but their expectations of that, and they're expecting more B2C type experiences within it and efforts. They don't always want to talk to a salesperson or a customer care or a finance person. There is an element of self-service and things there that they come up and been expecting, and there are more and more digital natives entering the workforce. I think the other areas for me that obviously I think we all know that Gen AI is and the reduction and how that's going to revolutionize what's being done, and the reduction in costs. And we only have to just listen this last week about what's been happening with Deep Link and that to know that there's another revolution of change happening there potentially. So there will be an element there of that is allowing things which were once prohibitive to change. So I think that's another factor. I think within that context, I think the manufacturers of in B2B and the distributors of that product are both realizing the value of that, and I think the need to collaborate more. So I think as manufacturers and distributors get more digitally mature, they'll look at digital ways of working more rather than, hey, we'll send you a catalog and etc. And very much in the way I would say FMCG has worked for a few years. And then I think the other thing that's happening, I've seen a lot more is having been started going to technology events and expos, etc. I've seen a shift in the technology vendors that are out there realizing that their B2C technologies that they have there are probably there's an opportunity for them to look into B2B. So I think all these things mixing together just says to me that there's definitely a sea change happening at some point in B2B in the next, I mean, more than it's been. And it's not to say there aren't some players out there who are really sophisticated, but I think this is a more holistic view for me.
Okay, well, you touched
Final
upon some
answer.
really,
There we go.
yeah, you touched upon some interesting points there, and I think it'd be interesting to dive into a couple of them in a little bit more detail, particularly the first one around the rise of digital natives and their expectations. It does seem as though that a lot of B2B organizations do still run on very legacy technology and processes. I've heard stories of many businesses that still use pen and paper for orders and travel to do stock takes with their pen and paper, for example, which, as someone myself, I think sounds crazy. You know, I'm nearing late 40s, and I guess when you've got the younger generation, the mid 20s, that's just going to be insane for them, right? I mean, they want to do it
Yeah.
on their mobile phone. So it's really surprised me as to how slow some of these companies have been at adapting to the modern technology per se. I mean, what's your reason for what? I mean, why do you think that might be?
I think I think it's that. Yeah, that's just quite it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because there is that element there. I think there's always that element of you need to have change come from the top. So there needs to be that mandate that actually this is an opportunity for us. There's obviously then there is that so that's the key thing I think is ultimately do you have a leadership that believes in that or still believes that the personal relationships and doing it being with a sales team being with being with their customers is the right thing to do, but it's becoming increasingly inefficient. I think that's one. I think that's kind of one thing. The other thing is that in type of investment that you do in digital is I always think is I know everyone thinks it's crazy to measure. I think sometimes it's quite hard. There's a leap of faith there that I think you need to have to take it. But again, it feels and also then there's obviously channel conflict and change management elements to this because you've got a business that runs a certain way. You've got to think about how you're going to change manage it and not see it as a channel conflict and see it how it will enable you to do better things and not do that. Which is why I think Gen AI is actually people are looking at. But even if they're looking at that from a cost reduction, process automation side of things, that's a good start. But I think that's probably where it's been at. But I think now, I think if there are companies who are still thinking that way, they're going to be left behind because their competitors are not going to sit around.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, it seems as though they're probably already a bit late to the table with some of this. And if it's not something that's on the agenda now, then they're certainly going to be falling behind some of their competitors that are going to be far quicker moving and far more agile when it comes to picking up on this.
And their customers are going to expect it more as well. Not all the customers want to do pen and paper either. The customers are expecting, as well as they're expecting better digital experiences, not just the internal teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I guess I mean so that's a great point. I mean, obviously I focused it on the internal teams, but yeah, their customers will also be digital natives. I'd say a large proportion of the workforce these days are digital natives, um, or if not digital natives, they're certainly very very strong from a digital background. Given a lot of this now isn't new, so if that isn't your primary channel, then I think it's certainly something that's going to be struggling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and the
Just
other,
a very, very quick aside, James. I was saying before, in school at the moment, my son, my 14, sorry, my 13-year-old, it's not 14 yet, 13-year-old son, he's been learning about Gen AI, the ethics of it, the use of it in class and stuff. So you're thinking all these people in 10 years' time are going to be in your workforce. If you're not considering how they're going to interact with you, they'll know nothing else.
it's funny you mentioned that. Actually, I've had a few conversations over the last 3 or 4 months around with people similar to yourself and their children who are using Chat GPT and what have you in everyday life. They're all under 16 and they're using it far more than someone like myself is. And I feel like I use it quite a lot, but they're using it for all kinds of things. One of them made a business using it. So, I mean, we're getting very clued up very quickly with Gen
Yeah.
AI. And the case studies with Gen AI are just evolving every single day as well. So yeah, I think going back to kind of what we've said, if that isn't something that's on your radar, whether that be for cost reduction and efficiencies or anything else, then it's certainly going to fall away pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned some of the tech players as they look to realize challenges in B2B. Obviously, there's been a huge amount of innovation within technology over the last 10 years, particularly the last 5 years. Are there any B2B players that you think are worth keeping an eye on for B2B organizations?
Oh my goodness, throwing that one on me. I think. I mean, I think that I mean, obviously there are B2B e-commerce platforms. I think obviously they're the ones who are really thinking ahead of the game there. I quite like what they're doing. Some of them like Oro, very impressed with what they're offering. I think those that are just much more flexible are strong there. I think if I can think of vendors who are more B to B and into B. I think the content management system types of
Yeah.
vendors are the ones that I think because Gen AI really lends itself to it. So I was very impressed with listening to what Sitecore were doing with. I'm trying to remember who it was now. I think it was a travel company in the B2B space and just utilizing it to accelerate the generation of content and those sorts of things. But they were looking at it from both perspectives. So I think they're in a good position because content is king and content's king wherever you have it. I think those are the ones that I find really interesting. And then I think there are other smaller technologies. I quite like what Nibble are doing with their AI negotiation tool, which is a real B2B and a B2C. But I think B2B is a really interesting um, technology that allows you to have conversations and negotiate within parameters with someone there. So again, goes back to the digital native who doesn't necessarily want to phone in and gets you the sale. I think and the other areas for me, I find quite interesting. I don't know, it's pretty dry for other people, but I think and one of the things with B2B is it's so much more involved from a direct customer relationship from a finance perspective. So when you're seeing some of these Korea and Amondo, these payment B2B payment providers who are just doing a Klarna and managing your credit and settlements and doing credit limits and taking that risk and then allowing you to get a customer on board very quickly is really interesting as well. So I think that it's all going there. Then I think you'll start seeing some of the other um, some of the other technologies. I think the one areas I'm always surprised isn't cost over more is probably around the CDP, CXP. So the email marketing side of things. I've seen a lot of vendors out there who is very much, they'll come in and present you hey, here's how our tool does its welcome program for a fashion. Like it's B2B, you need to really think about your decks here. You need to think about how if you want to get into B2B, you've got to think about the complexity of that that interaction, which I know we'll talk about later.
Cool. So
Um,
do you feel that could be an area to watch
I
out
think
for
there's
in the
I think
future
there's a
then?
lot of opportunity there for technology companies to, if they do it right, to do it. So I think they need to, I think they need to engage. They probably to engage their networks of people who've been in B2C who are in B2B, just to think about how they present themselves.
Nice. Well, watch this space. I'm certainly familiar with the Nibble software.
Yeah,
Obviously, Rosie was on the show a little while back
yeah,
now.
she
It
was,
seems really
wasn't she?
cool. And I do believe we will see that rolled out far more, both B2B and B2C. It seems a no-brainer for a lot of organizations, particularly ones like maybe Sky and your broadband and what have you, where we know it's very much a haggle every 12 months to try and reduce your costs and what have you. Takes up a lot
Yeah,
of.
and I think and I think it's interesting because you see some other small technologies in the Shopify, apps, and there's one thing called Applo, which is conversational commerce at the product page. I mean, that's crying. Things like that are crying out. They're crying out to be part of that B2B e-commerce world because there's a lot of questions and a lot of information needed. I think sometimes in a business sense for products that you buy online in the B2B e-commerce environment, and I just think that's a huge opportunity.
Mm,
Conversational commerce is one of my predictions for this year. I think it's going to
yeah,
be really important.
I think I might have read that actually in your
Yeah,
in one of your blogs you put together a few weeks ago.
yeah, that's right.
All right, well,
I hope I'm
watched
right.
it. So yeah, there we go. But then let's move on to the similarities between B2B and B2C transformations, David.
Yeah. I think looking at I think maybe not transformations, but from the experiences, I think the similarities are for me is the overall journeys are very similar from a website perspective. Now I know there's talks now of with Gen AI and things that you're going to have a different one where you're not going to go to a homepage and search and merchandise. You might have a conversation on Gemini or wherever or ChatGPT and then go deep into a page and then you know what you want and then it works that way using that. But I think generally the awareness to basket process currently is relatively similar for a lot of people. So being visible in Google, being visible in Bing, being visible in business areas and awareness is the same. You just need to be there. You need to be there at the right time. You need to be retargeted. That you come on the website, the information, the value proposition, everything there has got to be there. Your search and merchandising has got to be tip top. You've got to try and get customers to log in. It's the same thing, product information, etc. All the same thing. You're looking at basket building. People look for price. People look for promotions. They look for an ease of getting everything they want quickly and into a basket. So I think that's very similar at the journey thing of what you do. Again, digital natives and everything we do. That B2C experience in there is to me is the same. And if you don't have the right search results, then it's the same as a website. If you don't find the right search result on the B2B website. I think the other similarities for me are around when information is needed about a product. You know, you need that information. Now in B2C, that I mean, obviously, if you're buying a fridge or buying a something like that, you're going to have questions there. There'll be user generated content. There'll probably be a chatbot, etc. All those sorts of things there to try and give you. There'll be a compare tool and that sort of thing. If I think more of like a white goods, consumer goods thing, and a similar B2B, you need that as well. You all have questions. If you're buying an important piece of important product for your business that has to have specific functions, and you need it quickly, and you need all these things, you need to be able to get the information you need and be able to interact with questions at the right point. And I think, I mean, those are from the journey point of view, and then also the other thing I'm kind of noticing more is from the types of businesses and channels and their interactions is relatively similar because so the needs, so if you've got a manufacturer who normally uses distributors to sell, so that's similar to my old brand, UGG selling through John Lewis. You still want to sell through those places because ultimately customers want to get everything in one go, and you'll use distribution channels to do that. But equally, the brands will also sometimes sell direct. So there's that DC manufacturer element of what that is versus that. I think that is the same. And then obviously the channels that people are using. I think mobile is probably used much more in B2C, but it's becoming increasingly important in B2B too. And I think we see a high amount of traffic of browsing traffic on mobile, which says to me that people are looking at things on their phone. Maybe they're going in a stock room. Maybe they're going, as you said, pen and paper stock room. They might be going in there and seeing what they need and building a basket on a mobile and then finishing off the transaction on a desktop. So I think that element of knowing those things is relatively similar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I guess that last point is going back to kind of what we discussed at the start and just making sure the business is set up to engage and to assist, but whether it's the internal staff or the customers in the most appropriate way possible. And reality is right now that's probably going to be via a mobile or possibly a tablet, whether that be via a mobile friendly website or an app, whatever it might be. I think that's something that's really important.
Yeah, I think the other example of that is obviously then the other example of that would be in retail, that increasing omni-channel experience of keeping the sales doing the sales in the store through an iPad or an app with a customer is no different to what eventually a salesperson going into a B2B customer will want to do with them, which is build a basket, build a quote, negotiate, put those things, get an order through. It's very similar to the clienteling, I guess. The clienteling you would call in retail versus the more of a traditional sales engagement in B2B.
Yeah. Might add, I find that really useful in retail as well. When someone's there with an iPad and they quickly search the stock or whatever, you can then in some cases actually make the payment through the iPad as well. So they can effectively remove the need for the till and have 5 or 6 of their sales assistants being being able to manage the full process. And if you could replicate that in B2B, where your sales assistants or your account managers or whoever it might be are heading out to site, doing all of the order on an app on the iPad and processing it and what have you, then that certainly helps as well as to doing that, making notes and then having to go back and then put it onto a desktop or pen and paper and fax it across or whatever it might be.
But it brings it back to that point I said about change management, because you have to get over that channel conflict thing. In retail, it's like if you take that sale on that iPad, you will get commission or be recognized for that sale, even though the fulfillment might end up being through the website or through, hey, we haven't got this in stock, we can ship it from our other store or we can ship it from our warehouse or I can pre-order this for you and get it here. They need to know that, and the same with a B2B sales agent. They need to know that probably that iPad is tracking that their sales came through that, even if it's maybe going through. It looks like it's coming through a different channel. So there's definitely a change management element to all these things, and there's a lot of work that sometimes goes in the background of these things to get them working in an
Yeah,
operational perspective.
definitely. I find change management really interesting because from almost all the conversations that I have, change management in some form is key to any form of transformation.
Yeah,
And actually making sure you communicate the right message enough times to all of the employees throughout the transformation is absolutely fundamental to it being a success, whether it be B2B, B2C, whatever. Getting that message across and getting everyone bought into the reasons behind why you're doing it and then ensuring they're following the appropriate steps to do it correctly is such an important and what seems to be undervalued aspect of transformations.
why you need that buy-in from the top to filter it down that we're doing this, and it's for good of the business, and we'll make you more efficient. Yeah, productivity. Oh,
I feel like it's easier said than done though, right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Or maybe you get the buy-in, but then you don't get the budget or whatever. But I get the feeling I get is that not enough organizations invest enough in change management anyway.
No. We know. I mean, humans are fundamentally built wired to not like change, so it's uncomfortable sometimes, and it's just you have to try and make people feel uncomfortable for a bit before they feel more comfortable again.
That is a very fair point. Yeah. You pick up bad habits, right? And you just things become second nature. So if you've been doing something for 5 years, then actually, if you're going to have to change the process in which you do that very same thing, then yeah, it's not something you're going to pick up overnight. You're going to need to be encouraged and you're going to guide it on it over a period of time until that then becomes second nature.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. So we spoke about some of the similarities between B2C and B2B. Obviously, there are a lot of differences as well. So, in your opinion, what are the differences between the two?
Um, well, I think there are a few. I can always keep giving a few examples. I think the first thing for me is if obviously B2C digital experience, there's a lot there about. It's more about function in B2B than it is about inspiration. So, if you're that personal element that, and if you use the thing is Bain and Company's value pyramid, which I'm sure people who do marketing know, but done marketing know about, there's the base level is functional value of something, and it builds up to emotional value, life changing, and then social impact. So it's very about how does this what I buy inspire me, and how does it change my life, and how does it make me feel better, and that consumer element of inspiration. Completely different in business. You're doing a job. It's more about the functional value and really about will it save me time? Will I get a good deal? Will you deliver it when I need it? Have I got the right thing? Are you selling me other things that I might need in this and giving me a good? It's all about in service, really important. I guess that's important in both, but it can be, if you're not delivering something, a manufacturing part, because they're building something for someone and you're delaying production for that causes problems from a business perspective. And then the emotional value of that really in B2B is it's reduction of anxiety and making sure makes me feel better. I can do my job more efficiently. But you're not going into that world of inspiration. So I think that's the really big difference to me. So there's a lot more invested I believe in B2B. B2C marketing is all about inspiration and that element of trying to keep people inspired. I think the other difference is that extra level of and actually there are probably two levels of it. Customers versus the users in the business. So your users on your website are personal people, but they're individuals, but
Mm.
they're representing a company, and they could be representing a company at different levels. So they could just be somebody buys, it could be a procurement manager in a corporate business, it could be someone who's going in to check all the invoices, there could be an approval process there are all different types of personas who are part of the customers that use your platform. So you need to think of that, and that you don't get in B2C, business to consumer. It's your one customer, your one person. It's just a little bit easier. So managing that could be quite complex.
Okay.
Um, and then I think the other thing for me which I really noticed, is the under the hood, the complexities once you're logged in. So like you've obviously got you're gonna the individual personalized pricing that's there is at a different level. The number of users that might be within as I just mentioned, how your payments are, payments on credit terms, settlement times, paying invoices versus, having a trade account versus a cash account. There's a lot of interaction with credit control and things there that are just there's and approvals and portals and bulk ordering and there's just a lot more complexity underneath the hood there, that I think is there, and often in distribution just that repeat purchase element to it, probably a bit similar to a grocery one in groceries in, or maybe a Juicens or something where you might go back and buy things quite regularly, but that to me, that level of complexity underneath the hood was a real eye opener. So there we go.
Yeah, I mean, often I'm told about the complexity from like pricing and payments and what have you. Obviously, you can have thousands of customers and they each buy different amount of units from hundreds to millions. And the more units you buy, the different price points you have, that kind of stuff. So I get that's like a really complex piece of the setup. But I
Yeah.
guess if we look at the functional element and to me, that kind of makes it a little bit easier because you're not having to sell emotionally like a lot of brands will do. So what's important to a business is going to be the cost and the quality basically. So I guess you don't have to focus on the high level marketing, and it's more just about making sure that those key points are there.
Yeah, I agree. But I think as you go deeper down the funnel, I think it becomes. I think it's the informational element, the content that you have there. It's the content. If you're selling the specifications, I mean, the importance of a proper PIM, if you're in distribution and using it properly and thinking about how do you get that information, rich information there, and then allow them to contact people and ask questions about it. It's just that's really, really important. I think too. So it's not necessarily inspiration, but it's is this product going to do the job that I want it to? And I'm not going to buy something that I've got to return or get a credit on or et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot, there's a lot more richness needed around that, I think, which is quite important. So the richness is probably at a product level, and
Mm.
and maybe some of the content level around learnings about the products, et cetera, than obviously out there going, hey, there is TikTok actually. TikTok is used to B2B, but it's there's not a lot of that social media micro influencer sort of thing going on from a content perspective. It's much more, yeah, it is drier, but it's really important. And I think it's important to find ways to use the experience you have internally. I think that's the next step for me of where I can help is how I think it's still quite siloed. You know, I think that
Okay.
information can help influence purchasing decisions. How do you harness that in the digital world is can be much more important.
Yeah, well, I mean, it certainly seems like the importance of a good PIM is something that's really going to be key to this, regardless. And I mean, that's the same with B2C, right? It's getting that information in front of your customers, regardless if they're people or companies, is key.
And there's another level to that as well. I was talking, it was like we said, obviously, DC Vital, it sells, it has a number of brands, there are websites. I was just the example of like, your nitrile gloves that you use. There's from what's used for what that is a glove, and it's got properties, and it's blue and it's like whatever it might be, like nitrile or whatever, and its sizes or whatever are the same. But if you're selling it to how you're selling that to a first response ambulance and police service, that product is very different to how you sell it to a GP surgery because they're using it for different things. So it's the usage of a product, that the relevance of it to that individual industry. So you could be selling that product for different use cases in various places. Whereas, if you're selling a fridge, you know, B2C, you're selling fridge.
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
so
And
it's
I
just
not
it's
I
just that
always thought
element
of.
there of there's another level of the importance of getting that product information right to the right customer is really key.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I guess that obviously explains why there's been a lot of innovation within that kind of PIM area over the last couple of years, and I think we'll continue to see it be seen as one of the key areas of a digital transformation is having a really good PIM. Obviously
Yeah.
amongst a few other areas as well, right? So cool. So look, you've obviously been through a number of transformations in your career to date. I mean, what are some of your key previous learnings that you can share?
Um, okay, I kind of related to it earlier. I think the first thing is is leadership buy-in, stakeholder management, CEO. It needs to be mandated from above and supported if you're going to do a digital transformation, because it is going to affect everybody, and you need to have everybody on board. And if everyone isn't on board, I'd have I'd have warning signs, because if there is resistance, your job is, especially at director level, is to, or a leadership level, is to go and understand and try and unpick where those issues are. But you need that leadership thing. It's really important. If it's not there and mandated, now you're accountable for delivering, but you need to have that element, the steering group that involves people. It's not silo. Really important.
Also on that note, have you been in an environment where actually you didn't have the full buy-in, or you had it, but then very quickly maybe it became quite tough and some of that buy-in dropped out quite early, which presented you challenges?
Yeah, that's happened a few times, but I've seen it in a number of places. I think it's just sometimes a bit of digital maturity, and I think sometimes actually that element of it where it can work first is you can look at it of where it can be cost efficiencies as much as revenue driving is probably an option where you can show those. I think you should show both.
Mm.
But yeah, I have seen that in places. I think the other thing I said is working with other parts of the business. It's just there's a lot of it is about trying to every time is to get by, but you have to listen, listen to and understand what's there. If you go in and start going, right, digital is the way, you're going to hit resistance, because the things we said all the way through. You might have some change. How is it? And think about going in. How will it benefit me? How will it benefit my customer? Will it drive more sales? Will it reduce costs? And think about how does it for part of the business. And I think over time you kind of know where those areas are and where resistance might be. Um, I think a couple of other things. I think, well, actually within that, I think is, and then within that, actually on that same thing is, if you can deliver some quick wins that show quick improvements, you'll get more buy-in. Yeah. So I think if you're doing, don't I guess I say don't try and boil the ocean in one go. Just try and get a couple of quick wins in there. Look, if we do this, this will be better for your customers and save your time here on doing this. Whether it's even if it's something around a good example I'd use is, we had a situation where password management, because of again goes back to my point of complexity of business, multiple accounts, making it was, they were getting so okay, and they were a bit resistant. Oh, web, you're causing these issues. I said, well, why don't we look at do some continuous improvement, improve that password renewal process, and make it easy for customers to understand what they need to do, and et cetera, et cetera. And then it was probably about 3-4 days work, get it done, get it tested, present it back to the customer care team, and they were like, "Oh my god, we're getting 85% less calls." So that's a smaller example of a quick win. You can go in and do
Yeah, yeah.
something that's
It's
just,
with a substantial
so
result
do
as well at
that
the
to
end of
get
it.
do something to get buy-in. I think the other thing for me is don't, I said boil the ocean, but I think sweat your assets that you do go for. If you're doing a transformation and getting a new platform, I think, and you're getting a few new techs in there, just make sure you're sweating that asset. You've chosen the right one. Do a full RFP. More important, there is a risk at the moment with composable and headless that you just go, hey, I'm going to put this in here and put this in here, and it's so easy, which you and I know it isn't, because you need to be digitally mature to do it. And then you don't know, you're not using your technologies of all the functions of them. You've got overlap of what they do. Hey, I've got an AI personalization recommendation engine. Oh, but I've got an AI thing. But which one is driving the value and how are you tracking it? I think you just got to, if you've got a good platform, if you're going that route, you sweat that platform, every element of it that you can, before you think about getting another platform. I've seen it. I've seen it a number of times before where that's happened. And I think you just need to just really think about your tech stack and where does that thing add value. And I think sometimes incrementally it's quite good. You add one thing in, if it makes a change, it's done. You probably know that it's done the difference.
Mm.
Um, and then obviously then I guess the other thing is about building value cases when you talk upwards. So now when you're building out those value, when you're talking upward, talking the language that they understand, and try and relate what you're doing, what you want to do, to what the business needs, and what problems you're solving, but do it in a way that's not sounding like you're just a boy with toys. go with choice. Uh, there's, that's really important that you can get that to get the buy-in. So,
Yes, I guess some really really good things, some good points there, David. And I mean, particularly two that stand out. Firstly, is fail fast, fail quick. Something I find really important, particularly when you go through big change. You can't just do a big bang and expect it to all work okay. You need to fail fast and fail quick and learn and adapt on as you go. Do you know what I mean? And then the second one around sweat and the technology. I think that's a really great point. We've both probably seen it over the years where companies buy loads of new technologies, and as you said, they don't quite understand how to use them properly, and some do the same. In fact, I hear of businesses that have two different pieces of technology that do exactly that have the same functionality, and they've just been bought without actually working out how to use them properly. So it's crazy how much money I believe gets wasted on tech that doesn't get utilized. Um, Bro, thank you. Um, right, let's look to wrap this up then. So the final question I have is, what are your three tips for B2B transformation coming from a B2C background?
um, I think I think the first thing I guess is probably relating the similarities and understanding the differences. So, if you're coming in from B2C, you have to, I guess, initially you have to listen. I think all the things I've talked about before. You have to
Mm,
listen to understand the business and understand those differences there, and understand what drives those parts of the business in what they do, and understand the process. Don't go in there with a solution. Just go in there and understand it. I think is really important. Um, the other thing is within that, the change management. Don't ever underestimate that, and that the difficulty with that is can be quite tough. So you need to think about how you do that. Um, and then going back into the other thing, I think the final thing for me is probably going back to where the similarities are. Is you'll know you'll know pretty well if I said that, from the awareness, the basket element to it, of the similarities there. If you've got some good quick wins that things around that, you can say these are the examples of things I did in my B2C world that 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 will work here, and get that, and get some quick wins in around those sorts of things. You'll get buying more quickly, I think. And that's the thing for me, is so to take that, maybe get one technology that's done it. I think an example where um with Vital we did is getting in a company, actually a good one called Webio, do B2B personalization based on company IP addresses. Great technology, great company. Just really, just that way of like, well, I can target, if I know you're coming from a NHS practice in Wales, I can target you with that message and say, hey there, etc., and then give you content that's relevant to you. And just that's an example of something which is okay. It's not specifically, it's not groundbreaking, but just if that's not there, if there's something not there that you can go in and make a change with something really quickly like that, and show the upside from it, and especially visually, and see what the customers see. It can be a really good value thing to add. So just again, don't try and do everything. Don't boil the ocean. Try and find one thing um, that can help get people on side. I'm not saying that everyone's resistant, by the way. It's just that it's, as this goes back to the beginning. A lot of businesses are still a bit far behind on that digital side of things. So used to doing business a certain way. You just need to bring them on the journey.
yeah, and that's it. I mean, not everyone's like fully resistant, but I guess to a certain extent, everyone has a level of resistance to change. Some are very open to it, others are really close to it. And I think depending on the organization that you're in or that you join, will depend on kind of how you would approach these things, and whether or not you go for something really small, like a personalized email outreach campaign if they're not doing it, or something slightly larger.
I mean, other examples are, obviously everyone, if you're in a customer care or sales team, you worry about, um, uh, you worry about chatbots and AI take away which it isn't actually. Most companies, if they really want to do it, will say, you're spending 55% of your time doing admin and doing all these things here and answering the same old questions or doing admin. What if we did this? And then you're in an 80/20 Pareto's law situation where you're doing 20% of your time doing admin, 80% of your time selling or doing customer care or customer outreach or or in finance, you're reducing the time they're spending chasing invoices or doing something in that B2B portal world I was talking about. If you can make some changes there, getting people on direct debit. We did that recently. It's been really successful. Just using very simple direct debit sign-up tool just to get people online. And I think it's just that element of those small things that there isn't a fear here. This could be transformative for you and actually make give you high job satisfaction and keep your customers happier.
You say getting people on a direct debit, is that not something that's just been standard now for tens of years?
No, not always. No, no, no.
No?
Not in
Okay.
businesses. No, I think it's. But yeah, of course, there's direct debits. But I mean, there's a lot of businesses that still do it by right. We'll send you a direct wet. We need a wet signature, and we need because that's what we've always done.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
need you got there are tools out there that you can do it online now. You can do that. You can if you can just maybe try and integrate DocuSign into your journeys rather than having to send that element of if customers if they're onboarding just getting them making it as easy for them to onboard as possible. I think really is a time saver for businesses. It can be a very long process to go and get a trade account set up, and there are ways to improve it. But if you're taking that away from someone, they're not having to send off and then come back and do everything manually on with a direct with the sort code and account number written on a piece of paper, and then having to get signatures and there are lots of ways you can do improvements there. I think using digital.
Definitely, yeah, and Joe, what that leads me on to a little story off topic slightly. We signed up a German customer a couple of years ago now, and they actually sent us the T's and C's to sign manually with our hand and then send it back. And the whole process took about 3 weeks when actually it could have
Yes,
been done online in about 5 minutes,
just
and
like
it was
5 minutes.
crazy. And they refused to let us scan it and sign it and send it back digitally. We had to send back the hard copies. And I
Mm.
was just like, wow, maybe it might have just been a lot of naivety from my side. But I mean, we've been using digital signatures now for like, I don't know, 5 years, maybe even longer now.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember. So there's obviously a lot of businesses out there that don't. And it just amazes me that something so easy to, and so that can save so much time is not being adopted by so many companies.
But building it into there's the B2B element where you're doing it through emails and hey, we can personal one-to-one relationships, but giving that again goes back to that digital native thing. They're thinking, well, if I'm going to sign up, I'd rather just do it online and go through this and then do a DocuSign and do they'd rather do it all there, almost a self-service maybe sometimes. So I think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, but
Um,
also
if you
sustainability,
get your
right?
customer set up 2 weeks earlier, you've got 2 more weeks of your customer being able to buy from you.
Yeah,
You know.
well, exactly, and I mean, you've obviously got that, but you've also got the sustainability factor as well, right? I mean, some of these documents are tens of pages long.
They
You're
are actually,
sending
yeah.
that to all of your customers, then obviously that's not too good for the environment. So I mean, lots of reasons why something like that should be implemented in all businesses. I can't see
Yeah,
why you would just accept a hand signature only
yeah.
in this day and age, but yeah.
And I think actually interesting there now, and it goes back to that digital native and the tools you can use. Customer journey mapping is so much easier now. And to do that, or customer journey mapping, or process journey mapping using Miro and various other tools, and it's quite interactive and dare I say it, fun to sit there and go through. Here's your current process and just map it on boards with. You don't have to do post-its anymore. It can be done in Miro and go through and look at that, and then look at where those improvements can be. There's lots of opportunity there, and I think it's there's a lot more of that going to be going on. I think, but we've introduced that. It's really helped. Just go sugar. And that's where that that process is. If we just do that one thing, that's going to save us X hours, customer 4 days, blah blah blah, and sometimes it's as much as a few days' work. You know, so that's the joy of continuous improvements. So
Definitely, yes. I will admit we do still use post-its when it comes to our weekly meetings. So maybe I'll check out Miro. Was it Miro you said?
Miro, Miro,
Okay,
really good tool.
there we go.
You can
Brill.
put it in your podcast notes at the bottom. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's it. Well, look, I think that's probably it for today then, David. Thank
great.
you very much for joining me.
That's all right. Thanks, James. Good as
Covered
ever.
a lot,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, I hope all your listeners enjoyed it as well. I mean, the B2B industry and the opportunity within it, should I say, continues to be a hot topic at the minute. It comes up in a lot of conversations. So hopefully today's show has come at a good time to those either in it or interested in the sector. Um, If you enjoyed it, please do like and share across your networks, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thanks.